Angela Leering
is now joining.
Hi, Angela. I'm going to do a test. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Okay, when it comes to voting, I will just do a voice vote for you, if that's okay.
So how do I vote?
I'll just ask you yay or nay when it comes to voting, if you wanted to vote on items.
Okay, and then what if I have a question or a comment I want to make?
What was
Will I
that?
be able to? If I have a question or a comment I want to make, will I be able to?
Yes.
And then how do I let you know?
Just speak up and say that you have a question, and the council president will address you.
Okay, I'll do that. I just don't want to interrupt anyone because I can't see anybody in the room. So
Right.
All right.
Oh, sure. Is there a particular item that you wanted to speak on, and I can just let Ms. Brault know?
Well, I'll just say it because I'm not sure. I'm going to wait and see what the other comments are, and then
Okay.
I'll make a comment.
Okay, that sounds good.
Maybe everything will be, maybe my questions will be answered. All right, thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
I'll just put it on mute. And you can hear me okay and everything?
Actually, you're pretty soft, so are you on your car phone?
No, I put it on speaker because usually that's better. But if it does get like that, let me know. Then I'll just change it to something else, okay?
Okay, that sounds good. And I'll just ask
Thank
you
you
if you could just mute yourself until it comes time to voting, just so that we don't get any background sound.
Yeah, I will.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Check test. Oh, here.
Yeah, well, we only go on Sunday.
Yeah, whatever works. No worries.
test quick with Angela, I'm just going to do a quick test. Are you still there?
I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the September 11th, 2024 meeting of the Fond du Lac City Council. The first item of business is roll call, which is done electronically, and I will declare a quorum present with Ms. Leering joining us virtually. The next item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, which is followed by a moment of silent reflection. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is public hearings, and we have none, so we will move on to our consent agenda. The consent agenda finalizes the proposed actions for the meeting. A, August 28th, 2024 minutes. B, list of claims dated September 4th, 2024. C, denial of claim, Lisa Gillis. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Schussler and second by Mr. Heisler. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote.
Laring?
Aye.
Thank you.
And that passes unanimously. Next on our agenda is audience comments, agenda and non-agenda items. The presiding officer will limit speaking time for non-agenda items to 1 minute and items noticed on the agenda to 5 minutes. Ms. Hefter, do we have anyone wishing to speak?
We do. We have several.
All right, we will start with Mr. Steve Ave, a building owner who wishes to speak, I'm assuming on the ordinance listed on our agenda.
Aye. Howdy. First off, I guess what we're talking about is some of the drug trafficking, most of all the drug trafficking and the people trafficking the drugs. Everybody knows the problem that's been going on for quite a while downtown, people sleeping on the sidewalks, so on and so forth. So the only reason I spoke up after, I don't know, give or take 6 months is it seems to be getting worse and worse. Last city council meeting I came here, I thought I was listening to a walk down a yellow brick road on the way to the library. I didn't realize I had to walk around, people sleeping there, so on and so forth. So I got to congratulate you. You gave a nice speech. However, you left out a big part of the story. The drug trafficking is going on in the library. I seen it myself. There's a couple city people here I invited again to watch it. I'm not going to say any names right now, but they were with me there watching the drug activity go on in the library. I've got pictures, videos. It's not that hard to figure out. Moving forward, I'm not here to throw stones at anybody in any way, shape, or form. I'm here to help try to fix the problem. I'm here to help all these people in the room, and the other, give or take 50,000 people in Fond du Lac are tired of it. Property values are going down. Last year, you've seen the biggest property value increase in Fond du Lac. And this year, I think you're seeing the biggest property loss. There's right now, as I sit here, 7 businesses. I got to know them over the past 30 years. There's 7 businesses ready to move out of Fond du Lac downtown. They don't want their names to be exposed. They don't want people knowing that they're selling. But if something doesn't change quick, you're going to see Fond du Lac go right down the tube. And that's being polite. So I seen it again today after I left the DFP meeting. There's some guy tweaking out on the front entrance of the library. I called the police department. They came down there. By then, he was gone. I met one of the guys in the back parking lot. We walked inside. I met Lori, a lady named Lori inside. They have no idea what's going on inside, all the drug trafficking. So it's not a matter of homeless. Nobody's picking on the homeless. I was homeless myself one time. I lived in a 1960 Dodge Monaco. But I got my ass out of the back seat and went to work. Anybody can do it. I offered every one of them guys downtown a job. They choose not to work. So enabling them is not helping at all. The list goes on and on and on. So when I was talking to Lori at the library, I actually volunteered to move the feed box up to the police department so that they aren't hanging out in the front there. I'll move it to the police department for free or to the city hall. And everybody can continue feeding them or doing whatever they want to help them along. I buy them food sometimes myself. I give them gas, so nobody's picking on them. But they are destroying the businesses downtown. I gotta look through my notes. And also, I would appreciate it, and so would all these people in the room and all the people of Fond du Lac would appreciate it if the city council would give the police department all the tools they need to take care of the problem. All of the cops I talk to, they need solid proof. I understand that, but they need more tools to get the job done. I understand you're going to be doing something tonight, but for real, the rest of Fond du Lac expects you to give them more tools. You know, at the end, I got to compliment Mr. Marks in the library when he recited at the end of his presentation about the state law that states you give him the money and nobody can dictate what he does with the money. That's great. However, these people out in the audience here and the rest of the 50,000 people in Fond du Lac pay the bill. So if need be, his budget should be cut until he gets on board. That's my opinion and a lot of other people's opinion. I came here with, over the last 6 months or so, I've heard a lot of bitching and nobody comes up with solutions. That would be a start of a solution for all of them hanging out around the library and the drug trafficking at the library. The library isn't safe.
Thank you, Mr. Avig.
Damn, that's up already. See ya.
All right, next we have Craig Molitor, who wishes to speak on the ordinance cleanup.
Thank you, City Council President Brault, City Council, and City staff for the opportunity to speak on this important topic. I'd like to give a heartfelt thanks to the Fond du Lac Police Department as well as the library staff for being on the front line of this issue. There are several points on the spectrum of the homeless issue. On one end are the folks who, after living paycheck to paycheck to keep a roof over their head, lose the battle and find themselves temporarily homeless. And then at the far end of the spectrum, there are individuals who appear to choose to live on the streets. I make a point to emphasize the phrase appear to choose because research indicates this choice is not informed by free will, but rather by mental illness or drug addiction, and likely both. I'm here tonight with comments regarding to the folks that appear to be choosing to live on the streets, but it's important for us all to keep in mind that there are no villains in this scenario. Most every family in this country can empathize with the plight of mental illness or addiction. This is not a story about the good guys versus the bad guys. This is a story of a caring community striving to find a workable and humane path forward. I'm motivated by professional and personal reasons. I'm the president of the Community's Visitors Bureau. Key to our brand promise when we promote Fond du Lac as an ideal travel destination is the notion that our community is safe and clean. Relatively speaking, it is still safe and clean, but the promise is getting a little harder to stand behind. Last year, I was physically attacked in the visitor center by a homeless person. I've witnessed on Giddings Plaza in front of the Marian University building, public sleeping, brawling, highly suspicious activity consistent with drug dealing or prostitution, a brazen sex act, and overall bedlam punctuated by loud, angry discourse, drinking, the smell of weed, and urinating and defecating. Last month, while riding on a motor coach hosting a group of visitors to our community and driving down Main Street, we drove past a fight between a handful of homeless men encamped on Giddings Plaza. The tourists were visibly and audibly taken aback. At their next stop, Thelma, less than a block away, many of them were truly felt at risk. In addition to working downtown, I have spent a decade living in the downtown district with my now 9-year-old daughter. Sadly, last year I made the decision to leave for an outlying neighborhood. Every morning as my daughter headed out to the car to go to school, she would encounter the steady procession of homeless folks tromping over to the library. And one too many times we encountered inappropriate behavior and foul language. I've come to believe our downtown is no longer safe to raise my daughter in. That really hurts me to say that out loud. Good people of the City Council, two things can be true at the same time. We can take back our city streets, and we can still be humane, caring individuals. While I applaud the library and the community for being radically welcoming, I also believe there is such a thing as toxic altruism. The easier a community makes it to choose to live on the streets, the more it becomes a reasonable solution for those most at risk. I think we all know street life is not a humane lifestyle to encourage by underwriting in the name of altruism. This is toxic altruism, and the toxicity endangers the homeless individuals and the community they are conquering. Think of the small business person challenged daily by all the other realities of running a business in a downtown. Now add to that the dilemma brought upon by hordes of homeless people. Think of the workers in the hospitality industry, many of them frequently on the lower rungs of the socioeconomic ladder, whose careers are imperiled by declining sales simply because residents are growing leery of this portion of our community. Or worst case scenario, when workers in the downtown actually become victims of violent crimes. This is happening. We all know it's happening. The recent Supreme Court decision known as the City of Grant Pass versus Johnson finally gives us the tools to begin to stop the tragic enabling to a desperate and vulnerable community of people. Let's pass and strictly enforce the proper ordinances. Let's encourage the good folks that are working on behalf of the homeless community, such as Hope on the Block, to immediately relocate their dispensary to a destination more well-suited to hosting this type of activity, such as the police department. And of course, let's strive to continue to behave with love and charity in our hearts. I will close with this question, and I mean it sincerely. Does enabling dysfunctional behavior ever turn out well? Thank you.
Thank you. Can we please hold applause? Thank you. Next, we have Ryan Woolheader, who wishes to speak, I'm assuming also on the code cleanup.
Yeah, correct. My name's Ryan Woolheader. I own 74 South Main Street, the old Warwolf building. Me and my family, my wife and 2 kids bought it approximately 2 years ago. I'm just here to speak on my personal experience over the last 2 years of owning the building. Within the last 6 months, there's been issues. I've had the police there. I've had police reports. There's been vandalism that has gone on in the building. There's been people in there after hours that either broke in or got in because they forced a door open or some issue. I'm born and raised in Fond du Lac. I didn't come from wealth. I've worked very hard. I bought this building for $700,000. I had to put the livelihood of my family and myself on the line to be able to do this, to be able to put us in a position where I could change my children's outcome. And recently, the issues that have been going on downtown have drastically affected the livelihood of that building. I have tenants. There's several in there. We rent to the Department of Children and Family Services. It's a state office. I've received, because the limited parking downtown, the tenants have to use the Macy Street parking garage. So they have to walk through this corridor and they feel unsafe. I've gotten several calls about the concern of getting to their workplace. It's affecting my tenants, it's affecting their businesses, and it's affecting my ability to own a building downtown Fond du Lac and that building to be able to prosper. You know, I was encouraged with the recent growth and movement towards the downtown thriving. It seems like the city has really taken an interest in making downtown Fond du Lac being something where people want to gather, people want to go there, and businesses can thrive. You know, you think about places like Cedarburg or Lake Geneva or these neat little downtowns that are all scattered throughout the state of Wisconsin. And growing up here over the years, all the taverns and everything that has typically been the businesses downtown, I've seen it struggle, but it seems like the city has made this effort to try to make it something where people want to gather and businesses can thrive. With the recent stuff that's been going on, it's affecting me and the tenants that are in my building. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have David Lefebvre, who wishes to speak on the code cleanup.
Good evening. My name's David Lefebvre. I've lived, worked, played in the city of Fond du Lac for most of my life. I work for the Fond du Lac Housing Authority, so I understand the need for safe home, safe place to live. But part of my job, I drive around all day long, one end of town to the other. In the last 6 months, I've really noticed an uptick of this situation. It's not what I want to see. It's my town. I pay taxes here. It's not good for the city. It's not good for the community. I'm sorry.
Okay.
My notes are off, but one of the examples is my wife and I, we walk in the park every morning before work. I've done this for about 3 years. Walking, I have 4 different routes that I walk. I'm going to have to give one of them up because my wife won't go with me on one of the routes. And one of the routes is around through the park of an island, around the fountain, through the gazebos, and down the steps and go the other way. Well, this is at 5:45 in the morning. What do I see? Clothing hanging on the railings of the gazebo. People sleeping in sleeping bags in the gazebos. Pizza boxes. That's just not what you want to see at 5:45 in the morning. I'm a man, I can handle it. But my wife, not going there no more. I've spoke with friends, coworkers. They all feel the same as I do. Nobody wants to see this. Downtown Partnership has tried very hard to make the downtown a nice place and bring more people downtown. I don't see that happening. I don't even want to walk down Main Street. And part of it is that I drive around all day long and I see it over and over and over. I've counted approximately 20 different people, whether it's bicycles, backpacks, blankets, motorhomes, campers. We have one motorhome that's going around town. It's parked on 3-4 different streets all the time until people complain, then they move to the next street. It's just a rotation from one street to the other. And at one particular time, they were by my house and broke down. And it's like, oh no. So I'm not picking on nobody. And like I said, I understand the need for a place to live, but it does bring crime. It brings drugs. And just take, when you think of 20 different people, think, where are they using the facilities? Well, just take a walk through the park, look in the bushes. It's not a pretty sight. And I'd like to see this stop ASAP. I'm not very happy about it, and I know a lot of my acquaintances are not happy about it at all. So I thank you very much for listening to me, and we need to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Ken O'Brien. Sorry. Okay. No, it was the handwriting. I'm sorry. I was having a little trouble. Well, thank you for your understanding.
Yeah, of course.
You wish to speak on the ordinance cleanup?
I would love to speak on the ordinance cleanup. I own a business here downtown. In fact, I'm one of Ryan's tenants. Ryan is a fantastic landlord, and I've really seen a lot of the passion and things like that being brought to the downtown area and so on and so forth from a lot of really talented and wonderful individuals to give people like me a chance. I started my business from literally nothing out of a tent in the farmers markets, grew it to a gas station, I'll get back to that later, and am now into a building on 74 South Main Street. I'm here for a few reasons. Number one is because I saw in the gas station where a lot of this problem is coming in from. Milwaukee and Chicago, the bus stations, they would bring these people here. A lot of the times they would just be dropped off with no plan. A lot of them were very severely mentally ill. One of them asked to come home with me at some point. I began to have to walk my team members out to their cars in the gas station because they just didn't feel safe out there. So these people, at least to my knowledge, and I'm not as educated as some of you on this issue, don't seem to be coming from the Fond du Lac area. I don't know if that's true or not, or what's going on with that, but it seems to be that these people are coming here for a reason. Additionally, I have a 2-year-old daughter and a 9-month-old son whom I love very much. One of my daughter's favorite places to go in the library, and I have personally donated items to the library reading program to encourage kids to read and come to my store and get some boba as a treat. I am disheartened and disgusted to hear of the activities that are going on in the library that are being taken place so close to where my children play, have a great time, and have fun. That makes me nervous as a father. Additionally, I'm not just a father to my children, I see myself as a guardian of my team. I love my team very much. I would die for them at my store. I run a team of mostly women, and a lot of them, all of them, have expressed disdain about the treatment that they have been received by a lot of the people between the catcalls, the shouting, being sexually aggressive towards them. I will always walk them out to their car. One of them, due to a medical condition, is not able to drive and now refuses to walk down to her other business on downtown Main. I'm not going to name any names with that, but it's a short drive, the fact that she refuses to walk it, and she's scarier than I am. I fear 3 people, my wife, my mother-in-law, and her. But she even won't walk down there. So, again, I do food. I see a lot of my beloved customers up there on the podium as well. I'm just interested in seeing everything get cleaned up. You know, I believe we can find a compassionate solution. I'm not saying that I have the answers. Most of my answers would probably get me pitchforks and torques out of here. But I don't have any good solutions, but that's what we elected you wonderful people to do. And I just hope you take these pleas seriously from us, that we're not just a bunch of crazy, angry people that bums are running around outside. It just represents a serious safety concern for people that I love dramatically. So I appreciate your time. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Dennis Melko, who wishes to speak. Do you wish to speak on the code cleanup as well? Sorry, I'm unclear from the sheet. Okay.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Over 20 years ago, we invested about $100,000 in our building. Since then, we've invested twice as much in the business and in the apartment remodeling upstairs. Our customers remind us how hard it is to find a place to park. This is Forrest the First. Our tenants remind us how interesting it is to walk the neighborhood, avoiding drug dealing, panhandling, and rubbish production. Common sense implies the reason for this diminishment of problem solving or parking enforcement might have something to do with manpower invested in tolerance for those making these problems and other such nonsense. We had an opportunity to invest in a building next door, the old Book World building, vacant for better than 10 years. But until something changes here, I think investing in this district would be a foolish idea. I'd like to ask the City Council to please consider leading the city administration down a path of enforcement of problem solving rather than just tolerance and cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you. That is all the speakers I had. I also had Sam Meyer, you do not wish to speak, but you're a proponent of the code cleanup, as well as Angela Roloff, who did not wish to speak, also a proponent of the code cleanup. With that, that ends our audience comments. So next we'll move on to our action items. Action item A, Class B fermented malt license, limited liability company AJJ Hospitality LLC, agent name Siddharth Sharma, agent address 920 South Military Road, doing business as Microtel Inn and Suites, business address 920 South Military Road, and our introduction is by our city clerk, Ms. Hefter.
Thank you, President Brault. AJJ Hospitality are requesting a Class B license. They are the new owners of Microtel Inn and Suites at the location of 920 South Military Road. The previous owners had the same license, and the new owner plans to keep the same business plan. Background checks were done on the proposed officers and agent, and Alcohol License Committee and city staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Hefter? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Mullen and second by Mr. Godfrey. Is there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote.
Laring?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Item B is Class A intoxicating liquor and Class A fermented malt license, Corporation Milwaukee Oil Corporation, agent name Parmeet Aurora, agent address 8176 Basil Court, Neenah, Wisconsin, doing business as AP Quick Mart, business address 136 West Scott Street. And again, our introduction is by our city clerk, Ms. Hefter.
Thank you again. Mr. Aurora has changed his corporation with the Department of Revenue and therefore needs to apply for a new license with that change for his Class A intoxicating and Class A fermented malt license at 136 West Scott Street. Background checks were done on the officer and agent, and the Alcohol License Committee and city staff recommend approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Hefter? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Godfrey and second by Mr. Heisler. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote.
Laring? Ms. Laring? I'll just do an abstain.
Okay, and that passes with Ms. Laring abstaining. Item C is permit to sell fermented malt beverages on park property. Entity Fond du Lac Festivals, event Fondy Falltoberfest, location Lakeside Park, Oven Island, date October 12th, 2024. Again, our introduction is by our city clerk, Ms. Hefter.
Thank you again. Fond du Lac Festivals has applied for a permit to sell fermented malt beverages on park property for Fondy Falltoberfest on October 12th, 2024. Chapter 486 in our municipal code states that during festivals approved by City Council, that beverages shall be permitted in all areas reserved for festival activities, and no alcohol should be carried into that area. City staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Hefter? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Zimmerman and second by Mr. Schussler. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote.
Ms. Laring?
Aye.
Thank you.
And that passes unanimously. Item D is resolution number 9141, a resolution waiving the prohibition against possession of alcoholic beverages on public ways for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Fond du Lac County's Halloweeny .5K event on October 24th, 2024. Again, our introduction is by our city clerk, Ms. Hefter.
Thank you again. Big Brothers Big Sisters of Fond du Lac County is requesting the city to waive the prohibition against possession of alcoholic beverages on public ways for their 6th annual Halloweeny .5K event on October 24th, 2024. This event is only for participants over 21, and no glass containers or carry-ins are permitted in the designated area, and city staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Hefter? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Mr. Schussler and second by Mr. Heisler. Are there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote.
Ms. Laring?
Aye.
Thank you.
And that passes unanimously. Item E is resolution number 9142, a resolution relocating the polling place for ward number 13 from their current location to the City County Government Center. Once again, our introduction is by our city clerk, Ms. Hefter.
Thank you again. I am requesting a change in voting locations for the Fond du Lac Aquatic Center to the City County Government Building. The current location has poor phone reception, and we have difficulties transmitting the voting results at the end of the night. The proposed location has adequate parking, handicap accessibility, and stronger internet access. I would also like to thank the Fond du Lac School District for the use of the Aquatic Center, and also Fond du Lac County, who is in support of the proposed location.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Hefter? Mr. Mullen.
I'd like to say thank you for answering my questions about this. This is my ward. I also know that the people that work at that ward, because it's by the pool, you have the smell of chlorine, and it's really hard to sit there for 12 hours or whatever. So
15. 15 hours.
Yeah. 15 hours. You're correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. Are there any other questions for Ms. Hefter? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Mr. Heisler and second by Mr. Mullen. Is there any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, please proceed to vote.
Ms. Laring?
Aye.
Thank you.
And that passes unanimously.
Thank you, Maggie.
This ends our input items. We'll move on to the this ends our action items. We'll move on to our presentation of input items. First is a presentation of the annual comprehensive financial report presented by Brian Grunwald, principal from Clifton Larson Allen LLP.
Good evening. I'm Brian Grunewald with Clifton Larson Allen. Thank you for having me here this evening. And I also do have Riley Hutter, who's a member of our audit team. He's a manager with our team, been involved with the audit process here with the city for several years. So thank you for having him as well. Before I get started, I do also want to recognize and thank your team, particularly Tricia and the rest of your team, for the cooperation and assistance that we've received throughout the audit process. We do ask for a lot of information and certainly appreciate all the cooperation throughout the process. In terms of the discussion here this evening, I did put together a brief PowerPoint that pulls information from the annual comprehensive report. Just wanted to give you a brief overview of the audit and the audit process. Again, as we go through this, please feel free to ask as you have any questions. Okay, this first slide just gives you an overview of the audit results. Included in the annual comprehensive report, there's actually 3 different reports, and this just gives you an overview of those. The first is considered to be the audit opinion. That's on pages 9 through 13 of the financial statements. It's considered to be an unmodified opinion. That is the highest level of assurance that you can receive as part of the audit process. And the purpose of that is to disclose that as part of the audit process, we believe that your financial statements are complete and accurate and in accordance with our professional standards. In addition to that, we also consider the organization's internal control structure. While we do not issue an opinion on internal control, we are required to gain an understanding of that throughout the audit process. Think of that as understanding how you pay your bills, how you handle cash, how you process your payroll, for example. Again, we don't issue an opinion on that, but if we would become aware of a situation, we refer to those as findings. We would be required to disclose those. Happy to report that there are no findings, no issues or concerns with regards to internal control. And that report is on pages 134 and 135 in the financial statements. And then last but not least, in addition, because of the amount of federal and state aid that the city receives, we do perform additional compliance testing on those dollars. The report that we issue on that is on pages 137 to 139. Again, we do that on a, I'll say, risk-based testing approach. Happy to report no issues or concerns with regards to the results of that testing from a compliance standpoint, again, focusing on federal and state aid. This next slide, in addition to the review that we go through as part of the audit process, the city also voluntarily goes through and has a review completed by the Government Finance Officers Association. As a part of that, they've issued the Certificate of Achievements for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This is included within the comprehensive annual financial report. As you can see, I included their certificate from 2022. You have received that award every year since 1995, so congratulations on that. And I just want to reiterate that, again, it is a voluntary process. It is my understanding that the 2023 financial statements have also been submitted, so hopefully next year at this time we'll be talking about the award that you received for 2023. This next slide is part of the audit process. There is standard information that we are required to communicate to governance. It's included in the management communication letter on pages 1 through 4. You can see some of the topics that are included within that document here on the slide in front of you. I would summarize that as very standardized language, a lot of specific accounting terminology. A lot of the content does carry forward from one year to the next. That being said, there are just a few items that I wanted to highlight or elaborate in terms of some changes that have occurred during the year. First, under significant accounting policies, one of the things that Trish and I always work through is what new regulatory requirements have been implemented as part of the audit process. That being said, there was a new governmental accounting standard. It's referred to as Statement Number 96 that deals with information technology arrangements. That was implemented as required. So you'll see several references throughout the financial statements that reference that standard. Again, all governments that issue their statements in accordance with government audit standards were required to implement that. Also, there were some changes in the language in the presentation included in the letter related to accounting estimates. Again, that was really driven by a regulatory requirement, some statements on auditing standards. So there were some changes there. And then last but not least, under the topic of audit adjustments, I just want to reiterate all adjustments that I'm aware of are included within your financial statements. So again, I do believe that your financial statements are complete and accurate and in accordance with our professional standards. So nothing unusual, just wanted to walk through that and share that information with you because it is required to be communicated to the government. And then again, there is a lot of financial information within your financial statements. Financially, when I step back and think of what I think of are the two most common metrics for measuring financial performance, it really starts with your general fund, the main operating fund of the city, and focusing on your fund balance reserves. So I have a few slides that talk about that. And then from a financial standpoint, I also like to look at your general obligation debt. So I have a few slides that focus on that as well. Here, jumping into your fund balance reserves. Again, this is just looking at your general fund. One of the things that I always like to look at is your long-term trends. And you see the different categories of your reserves there. If you look at the sum of all those categories, your fund balance has been very consistent from 19 through 2021 at approximately 8.3 to 8.5 million. For 2022, again, the sum of all those categories did increase up to 8.9. And then for 2023, the excess of your revenues over your expenses came in at approximately 1.7 million, bringing your total reserves up to approximately 10.7 million. You can see the increase in the 2023 column on the slide in front of you. And I also just want to touch briefly on the different categories there. I'm going to start out at the bottom. First, the light blue category, the non-spendable. Those are really amounts from an accounting perspective that deal with timing. It's cash and amounts that have been paid prior to year end, but those expenses really relate to the following year. So we have to identify those and identify those as non-spendable. So there's just over $1 million in that non-spendable category. The committed and assigned are really what I like to refer to as your planning opportunities. What purposes do you want to set aside funding for? So you've done that. You can see the different dollar amounts there. There is additional information included in your audited financial statements on pages 70, 78, and 80 on those dollars. The one thing that I do want to highlight is that assigned category. That is amounts that have been set aside as part of the budget process. When you go through the process of applying fund balance to next year's budget, we set that aside and refer to that as assigned. Again, just to earmark those funds. And then last but not least, all the dollars that are remaining are considered to be in that unassigned category. You can see across the graph how that balance has fluctuated over time, certainly coming in at $9.3 million for 2023. Certainly a positive increase and a very strong result in terms of your overall fund balance reserves. This next slide just gives you some additional perspective with regards to, again, focusing on the general fund, focusing specifically on the unassigned dollars in your general fund. And from a benchmarking perspective, very common to compare the unassigned fund balance to the amount of expenditures that are flowing through your budget and computing that as a ratio. You can see that percentage and how that has fluctuated over time. And consistent with what we saw on the prior slide, the increase in your unassigned fund balance dollars for 2022 and 23, you can see that expressed now in the percentages, increasing up to 26.6% at the end of 2023. As a reminder, the city does have a policy related to fund balance, a minimum policy that's based on 15%, so certainly coming in above that minimum policy. And from a benchmarking perspective, certainly very strong in terms of your overall fund balance reserves. And the next topic financially that I just wanted to touch briefly on was your general obligation debt. And I know you go through a lot of effort when you're going through the budget process to identify that debt, plan, make sure it's incorporated into your budget. This is really just intended to give you an overview of the audit results. Included in the financial statements, there's a lot of debt information. It's on pages 64 through 68. I just wanted to give you, again, a high-level overview and trend. And just keep in mind that this is only focusing on your general obligation debt, meaning debt that's secured by tax levy. And one of the things that I always like to look at is the two different lines on this slide. First, the statutory debt limit. Now, that's based on the equalized value of the property within the city. You can see how that statutory debt limit has increased over time. Back in 2019, you're at about $150 million in terms of your statutory debt limit. That's increased up to $209 million at the end of 2023. Versus the green line, which is actually your outstanding general obligation debt and the outstanding principal balance at the end of the fiscal year. So back in 2019, you had approximately $82 million. At the end of 2022, increased slightly to $86 million. To give you some perspective on what happened during 2023, you did issue $15.9 million of new general obligation debt. You also repaid principal of $9.7 million, leaving you with outstanding principal of $92.9 million. And one of the keys financially from a benchmarking perspective is to look at the gap between those two lines. What are you legally allowed to have outstanding versus what you actually do have outstanding? And as a percentage, your percentage of the amount that you were legally allowed to keep outstanding has decreased. Back in 2019, you were at about 54%. At the end of 2023, you're at 44%. Again, really primarily due to the increase in the property values within the community. And then last but not least, I also just wanted to take an opportunity to look forward. So from an audit perspective, the last several years, we've talked a lot about the American Rescue Plan dollars, the impact that's had on your budget. And from an audit perspective, we like to talk a lot about the testing requirements related to that. There's compliance requirements, eligibility requirements, reporting requirements. I just wanted to reiterate that from an audit standpoint, We did test that program during 2023. Again, no issues or concerns with the compliance portion of that funding. And again, as a reminder, at the end of 2023, you did have approximately $9.9 million in cash under that program. And then I also wanted to reference new standards. I know the last several years that I've been here, I've referenced a new governmental accounting standard. Again, that's the regulatory body that sets standards that we have to follow as part of the audit process. I referenced statement number 96. That was implemented during 2023. This just gives you some perspective. They have been busy. They're now actually out to statement number 103. There is different implementation dates, and I look forward to working with Tricia and your team to make sure that those statements are properly implemented as required when they are required to be implemented. More to come on those. And that's all that I had prepared. I certainly would be happy to answer any other questions, thoughts, concerns with regards to the audit or the audit process.
Thank you so much for that great presentation. It's always nice to hear good news. Are there any questions or comments from council? Mr. Schisler.
Just want to congratulate Tricia and all the staff on the amazingness of our city books. It's one reason why people like to live in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. This is a well-run city where the books are clean and people are honest. I've, in my job, had opportunities to work with other cities and villages which are a complete mess. They can't get people to serve as on their councils and boards because the books are in such horrible condition. They're laughed at. They can't borrow money to improve their infrastructure. I just think that the people in this community take the staff here for granted, and it bothers me. And I just want to thank our staff so much for running our city and making our city a place where people want to live.
Thank you, Mr. Schisler. Are there any other questions or comments from council? Mr. Mullen.
Yes, I'd also like to say congratulations, and of course we've come to expect that from you. Nothing but the best. If we could, on the presentation, could we go back a few slides to there? I was curious if you have any idea of what that's going to look like in 2024. Are we going to go back to a more normal percentage of unassigned, or?
For the unassigned, we expect it to be about at this rate. I mean, we've made changes to, the reason why it's, the unassigned was up to the 9 million is because we've brought down the amount that we're applying to the fund balance. So like in 2022, if you would have added the 5 million with the 2 million, you know, that's almost, between those two numbers is almost 8 to 9 million there. So we've just reallocated the funds that we have, and we're making a concentrated effort not to apply fund balance.
Okay, so we think that 2024 is going to more closely resemble 2023 than, say, 2022.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Mr. Moore.
Mr. Mullen, I wanted to add for your benefit and the rest of the city council, if you look at the assigned line and you see we go from 480 to 121529, you'll recall the many conversations we had about shared revenue and the erosion of shared revenue and how we were applying more fund balance to create a balanced budget. And that's the effect, ultimately, of the legislation. Last year, we dropped from about 3 million down to 139,000. So that was a significant driver behind that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from council? Seeing none, I'll just echo the thanks and congratulations on the excellence, Ms. Davey, for you and your staff. Thank you, Mr. Moore, and all the department heads for all the work that goes into our budgets. And hopefully we'll hear more good news next time. So thank you for being with us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, next we will move on to our Public Safety Code Cleanup Ordinance presented by our City Attorney, Ms. Hoffman.
Thank you, President Bro. Maggie, why don't we click open like the red line so you can, yeah, that. What I'm here tonight is just asking for your input regarding several code changes we want to do, and I'll just go through them in the order that they are in through the citations. The very first one is we're allowing the community development director and some additional positions to be able to write citations. So that's the first change, and you can see that the reason fire captains aren't a position anymore, so that's why that's being taken out. So you see that blue strike, but all the reds are additions. Those are all additional positions that will be able to write citations. All right, and then Meg, like, roll on down and keep going, yeah, to there. This whole entire section, chapter 500-1, these are where we adopt the state code by reference, and that allows us to prosecute those state code violations in municipal court. And what we're doing here is adding several additional state code violations so that if, for whatever reason, they are not going to be prosecuted in district court, they could, in fact, be prosecuted by my office in municipal court so that we can, again, discourage these types of things. And the ones involved in invasion of privacy, representations depicting nudity, possession of child pornography. Now, oftentimes those will be in district court, but not always. So those are things we want to discourage. We also have adopted the entire state trespass code, and we had it written out within our code, but we didn't have all of it. So now we are adopting all of it. Okay, so then keep going on. And then this section 500-16 is disorderly conduct by use of telephone device. And this is going to cover sexting and revenge porn, all the kinds of inventive things that people have thought up to do with their telephones. So we've attempted to write this in a way that it can cover any of a variety of actions that people sometimes choose. So that's the purpose of that. And then finally, we have camping. We are prohibiting camping on city property, and we've tried to define what that is and how it will be handled. And there also is, the government can't take your property without a process. And so that's what we're trying to do here, so that even though sometimes if you're a homeless person and you have a variety of bags that you carry around with you, what we've attempted to try and make it clear is how that's going to be handled. If you've been camping and you're going to be moved on, property that isn't immediately apparent as rubbish or refuse will be, or if it's drug paraphernalia or weapons, things like that, those things will be seized by the police department. Other personal property that may have value to them will be held by the police department. They'll be given notice of it, and they'll have 30 days to claim it. So that's how we're going to attempt to dissuade camping on public property. We are also in the process of researching, sleeping on public property. And I have found some good examples in other communities. I mean, frankly, this has been a problem across the country. A lot of states are dealing with it. A lot of other cities are dealing with it. And I'm trying to take, all of the different good best practices that other cities are using, and we're going to attempt them as well. So I will be bringing that back to you as well, so that we'll have a no sleeping ordinance as well. Now, before you go to your questions, I also want to ask if the police chief wants to share his, how their department has been dealing with this.
Thanks, Ms. Hoffman and City Council. Throughout my 26-year career, I can safely say that the city has always had individuals experiencing homelessness within our community. However, most individuals were out of sight. Recently, we have been seeing a more public approach with those experiencing homelessness or are housing insecure. For an idea on the breadth and depth of those experiencing homelessness, national statistics show over 650,000 individuals experienced homelessness in 2023, which is more than a 12% increase over 2022, and is an 80% increase from just 10 years ago. And also, nearly 50% of those individuals were unsheltered in 2023. More locally in Wisconsin, nearly 5,000 individuals experienced homelessness in our state in 2023. I have found that effective strategies generally involve a combination of outreach, supportive services, and long-term solutions. At FDLPD, our strategies aim to address homelessness in a way that prioritizes dignity, support, and long-term solutions rather than punitive measures. For example, we conduct compassionate outreach and engagement. We have regular patrols in areas with higher concentrations of homeless individuals to build relationships and trust. We partner with St. Catherine's Drexel, City Community Development, churches, nonprofits, mental health services, substance abuse programs, and other community resources to ensure those individuals receive the comprehensive support they need. For example, just a few days ago on September 3rd, we partnered with Solution Center and made face-to-face contact with 24 individuals who are publicly visible and experiencing homelessness. 22 out of those 24 individuals are Fond du Lac residents. 2 of the individuals were last from the Wisconsin Dells area, however, were in town and had family here until one of those family members had passed away recently. The Solution Center staff worked on getting these 2 individuals back home so they could be connected with services. See, many don't know that you need to have an address in the county in order to get services, for example, food share, AODA services, mental health services, and other state benefits, and using a shelter as an address does not count. It's so important to get any individuals experiencing homelessness that are not from here in the location where there is ties to family so that they can get hooked up with services and that support structure. We also provide crisis intervention resources. So I've been here a few times to talk about our mental health and wellness police specialists and our community response social worker. They aim to de-escalate situations involving mental health crisis and compassionately connect individuals to appropriate services rather than making arrests. Now, there are times when compassionate outreach and supportive services are either refused, ineffective, or exhausted, and we need additional tools as part of our long-term solutions. Like tonight's proposed public safety change to city code to add an ordinance that prohibits camping on city property. Until the U.S. Supreme Court recently issued its opinion in City of Grants Pass v. Johnson, there has been legal challenges to anti-camping laws, particularly in areas where there's a lack of adequate shelter space. Courts have sometimes ruled that enforcing these laws without providing sufficient alternatives can be unconstitutional, particularly under the Eighth Amendment's prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. By combining immediate interventions for unwanted societal and/or criminal behaviors with long-term strategies, we can create a more effective solution for individuals experiencing homelessness and support them in their journey towards stability and well-being. FDLPD tries to set an example that prioritizes dignity, humanity, and supportive services. We want to have these conversations with respect, understanding, compassion, and professionalism. This is not just a police issue, a community development issue, a downtown business issue, but it's clear our strategies together have been working in some areas, and with the City Council's assistance in approving the proposed public safety changes to the city code, we will have another tool or strategy to make a difference. A tool just like others where police officer discretion plays a crucial role when it comes to deciding whether to issue a citation or warning. Discretion allows officers to consider various factors and make judgments based upon the context of each situation. It's more than an individual's eyes that are open or closed. Or is this person really sleeping? Discretion looks at things like the overall seriousness of the issue, attitudes and behavior, past history, and chances to correct their behaviors, just to name a few. Overall, while discretion allows our officers to tailor their responses to fit the situation, it also requires them to balance fairness, consistency, and the needs of our community. With this all in mind, I thank you for your time, and I want to open up to see if you have any questions for City.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council members? Mr. Heisler.
I do have.
Oh, actually,
Well,
yeah.
no, go ahead. Let's
start
go ahead.
with Ms. Meering.
Marion, go ahead. Go first.
I'll
Yeah,
go.
absolutely.
I'd actually like to go last if that's okay. I'm gonna wait. Maybe you'll. Is that okay?
It doesn't matter to me.
As long as you're okay with that, we'll let you go last
I'm
if
fine.
you'd like.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, then we will start with Mr. Heisler.
Thank you very much, President Brault. I just want to very enthusiastically thank everybody for coming tonight and addressing this issue, also doing so knowing that we've got a lot of respect in the room for those who are affected by the issue and also all those people that we know that are suffering in our community. And I think Mr. Molitor eloquently put things together in a way that says that, we can handle this with compassion, we can handle this with kindness, and we can also handle this by giving Chief Goldstein and his staff some more tools that are in the toolbox in order to make that happen. I'm very enthusiastic behind that. I believe that this code change is a good start. I think, as Ms. Hoffman alluded to, we have more work to be done. There's definitely some more things in the code that I think eventually we're going to have to address. And I also want to thank Mr. Bolthouse and the library board and everybody that's been able to be on the front line of all of that and dealing with that from the library board perspective as well. I'd also like to thank Ms. Hanson and the Downtown Fond du Lac Partnership Board for their willingness to be a solution provider with some of this and a community partner and an advocate. It's, sorry about that, Ms. Krupp, my fault. I knew I'd mess that up for only about the next 4 or 5 years while I call you by the wrong last name. My fault. But anyways, it's actually my fault, Doug. That's more Doug's fault than anything else, but that's okay. Sorry about that, buddy. I guess I just want to finalize my comments by saying I think we all agree that we have a wonderful community, and we all agree that we've got an issue we've got to deal with. And I think that this is the start of being able to address that issue. And I think there's a lot of people here tonight who would like us to take some immediate action on this issue. I think this is a good draft. I think we can pass it out of an input item, and I'd like to make a motion to pass this pass this ordinance as draft 2 is listed in our packet tonight. So, Madam President, if that pleases you, this motion is on the table to be passed this evening.
I have a motion by Mr. Heisler. Do I have a second? I'll second it. Second by Mr. Zimmerman. So we will now discuss the motion. Mr. Schussler, would you like to start?
Yes, I too want to thank everyone who's here listening and helped put comments together or spoke. They were tremendous. I learned a great deal from all of them. One comment was made which raised a question for the chief about people coming off the buses. Is that something that the department monitors at all, who's coming into town and coming off the buses that might be creating part of the problem?
So there were a few things that were said tonight that aren't fully factual, but as far as, so we have heard the same thing as are people getting bussed in, vanned in, and I can tell you that our staff, especially in our co-response unit, working with our resources, our point in time, our individual face-to-face, as you even heard just on September 3rd, 22 out of 24 are from here. If you look at St. Catherine's shelter, who I meet with on a regular basis, if you say that, let's say there's a list of 500 on a waiting list, I can tell you that 95% of that list, so there's only 25 individuals that show out of town. We have not found anything factual on our end to support that those are coming into our community from other communities. The reason I tell you that is when they do come in, a lot of that outreach is to let that individual know is we cannot provide them those services because you have to have an address here in our county. So when they do learn of somebody that might be in our community from somewhere else, our resources work really hard to get them back to their support structure and where they're from so that they can get those resources. So it doesn't pay for somebody that needs any of those type of resources to be here from not living in Fond du Lac.
The other thing I picked up from the comments is that we're doing things that are enabling in some way, shape, or form. And one thing I've heard is that the warming shelter, Holy Family's warming shelter, is too close to downtown and should be somewhere else. And maybe you don't want to comment on that, but I'm hearing that, and I'm wondering if you'd be comfortable commenting at all on that as it relates to this ordinance that we're looking at tonight.
My comment will be from my perspective is we, that for about a year, worked with a lot of different individuals, organizations, churches, people that have gratitude and kindness in their heart, got around the table and identified an area that we believe was viable. I can tell you from our first season with that warming shelter there and looking at, it was nearly daily that I asked our night shift lieutenants, how did the night go? Did we have any calls? And I can tell you that we actually had I would say, a really good warming shelter season. So that would be my comment to you, Mr. Schuessler, at this time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you, President Brault. This motion on the floor here is pretty cut and dry. It's a good first step. I think we have a long ways to go, as we've said, but I want to stress again, it's not just a Main Street problem. I believe right now it's a Fond du Lac problem. I work on the west side of town. I go into work about 6 a.m., and I was mowing some lawn behind a dumpster with a blind spot last week, and I went around the blind spot, and there were 6 homeless people there sleeping. Scared me straight. I'm like, are you alive? So my only concern would be is after we pass this, let's not just move them off of Main Street and let them go to Lakeside Park or Adelaide Park or other portions of the town. Let's find them places to go. So, and that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the right things out of this. So we have a long ways to go, but I'm in support of this. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Leering, I don't have anybody else in the queue right now. Would you like to add your questions or comments?
Yes, I would like to make some comments, and I have a few questions. So I know several business owners have approached me. I know some of them. And so I'm just going to list some of the questions and comments that I'm hearing. So some of these are, why are loitering laws not being enforced? Where are the homeless coming from? Chief Goldstein has already informed us tonight during the meeting that many of the people are from this area or have family in this area already. So that question's already been somewhat answered. I've also gotten that they might not have any family ties here in our community, but are here for some of the services that we are providing. So who is involved in bringing in the homeless people to our community? And why are the organizations that are involved in bringing in some of the homeless people not housing them on their property? Then also, there's a time when people are not supposed to be in the park after a certain time, but yet there are homeless people in the park after a certain time. And so that's not being enforced. And basically, what are we providing here in Fond du Lac that makes Fond du Lac more attractive for homeless people to come here, for the ones that are not from Fond du Lac? So the last one I have is the library. I've gotten someone that told me that they were walking in with their child and there was somebody with a needle near the door, and they were concerned about that. And I told them, well, it could be somebody could have diabetes or something like that. I'm not really sure. I didn't see this. I'm just passing these things on. It is concerning because I myself have lived here a long time, and I've never seen it quite like it is now. I feel like we need to do something a lot quicker than what we're doing things. This is a good step, but I feel like we need to be doing more, and we need to do it quicker, because there are business owners who do want to leave Main Street, and some want to leave Fond du Lac, and I know some of these businesses, and it would really affect Fond du Lac. And I also see the other side of it because I do have compassion, and I do feel like we need to come up with solutions for some of these people. Some of them need to obviously have help for maybe drugs or alcohol. Some have mental health issues. And yeah, they don't want to accept help, but somehow we have to work on convincing these people that we're there to help them and get them the help that they need. Because, you know, what are we going to do? We're just going to keep adding more and more people to the street if we don't do something to remedy the situation. And I also want to thank Mr. Bolthouse and the library for what they're doing, because I know it's probably a lot to handle. There's probably complaints, and there's all kinds of things going on. I want to thank Chief Goldstein also for what he's doing, but I want to make sure that we also care about our local businesses, and we do what we can to help them and to protect them and to help the people that are here that are in need of our help.
Thank you, Ms. Leary.
And that's it.
Thank you. I'm going to look to city staff if there's anybody who felt.
I could, hopefully I got all that.
Yeah.
And I think some of it we have already discussed. One of the things, that feeling that we're not doing something fast enough is also, I can tell you, felt throughout the community and also on the public safety side. To give you an example where you see, we do prioritize our parks, especially, our overnight shifts, the ones that start at 7 p.m., others that come on at 10:30. We do a lot of what we call directed area patrols, foot patrols into the parks. We can't be at every corner, as you know, that is not realistic. But up until this time, and that's why we're talking about this change, is we have had legal challenges to things that we could do. And I can tell you that the city, I mean, it's not, if it's not a daily, it's a weekly type of discussion of, are we doing enough with what we can do and are justified to do and it's reasonable to do? And I would tell you, yes, it is one of those priorities for city staff and for public safety. That's why today in this discussion is with the legal challenges and camping and being in public spaces, officers were not able to move somebody along. It is like we're going to be able to if this is approved. So you'll start to see it. I mean, we have a ton of incredible resources. You've heard already that, how are they coming, or people are coming here for these resources. It doesn't pay for somebody that is not from here to come here with the resources because they can't use them. So, and I can tell you with all the discussions I've had in the community, we're talking upwards of 95% of them are our citizens. And, why are we seeing more? Well, there's more of a public approach. This is one person's opinion that has been in public safety and policing for 26 years. When I look at Main Street and we're working on the Main Street Plaza and you're like, okay, why this location? And it might be a multifaceted answer, but if you think about it too, is there's a number of women that are experiencing homelessness in that area that provides lighting, that provides an area where you have vehicles, and it provides, in their sense at the time, more safety than it might be in a dark area that they will not be maybe assaulted. So hopefully, and I know I'm going to meet with Ms. Leering in the future here. Hopefully I hit on some of those questions for her as she had them.
I would like to respond to. I forgot to thank you also because you did explain why it is difficult, especially with camping, and I appreciate the explanation for the public and for our city council about how difficult it is just to enforce some of those things. So I appreciate that because I think a lot of people aren't aware of that.
Thank you. Ms. Leering, was there anything that you felt was not addressed that you wanted a more of an answer to?
No, the questions that I have from the public, I will pass along to the chief when I meet with him next week, Wednesday. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we have Mr. Mullen.
Thank you. A quick question for Ms. Hoffman. We're working on a sleeping ordinance, or you're doing some research into that?
Yes.
Correct. Is there any reason why what we're talking about tonight can't be passed because of that?
No, no. It can be done separately. We don't need it to go forward.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to add some questions or thoughts. I'm not sure which, but first I'd like to ask Mr. Bolthouse if you'd like to respond to some of the discussion that's revolved around the library board, some of the policies that have been implemented to try to work with our community.
Yeah, I'd be glad to. I mean, I think the library board has met regularly, and every month we've made changes to the behavior policies of the library, and I think that we've seen an improvement in a space that is welcome to all. We've made changes to the exterior in terms of eliminating the picnic benches. We've made changes with the policies in terms of the sleeping at the library, both inside and outside, day and night. We made changes to the layout of the library physically to give it a more welcoming area for everyone. And so I think the board continues to make those changes. We listened to a lot that was said tonight. I think that the board will probably end up talking about the Hope on the Block Closet. That's the food pantry that is discussed. It comes by a couple names. But I think we'll be discussing the placement at the library as well.
Thank you. Yeah, as the city council representative on the library board, I want to reiterate just how much work I think has been going into trying to be radically welcoming, but also understanding of some of the concerns that we have from members of the community who have currently not felt welcome. There's been a real effort to balance what's happening and what people are perceiving. And I know it's not perfect, but I just want to give so much credit to John Mark and his staff for working to try to make sure that our community members feel that they're welcome at their library, that they're receiving compassion at our library. And I know that we're going to continue to do that work because there's no perfect answer to this. I also want to thank Chief Goldstein for your comments on this, because this is definitely something that I've struggled with is, how do we make sure that we're compassionate to our unhoused population while also making sure that our community is thriving, is safe. I do think with this camping ordinance, there is an issue of safety for the people who are experiencing homelessness. If we have people who are, basically camping in our Main Street Plaza and they have all of their belongings with them, and if, that makes them a vulnerable target to, having those belongings taken. So if we can find ways to work with those people and make sure that we're trying our best to get them connected with the resources, I want to make sure that we have all the tools available to our law enforcement to make sure that that happens. So I want to thank you and your department for all the work that you're doing. Thank you, Ms. Hoffman, for all the work that has gone into this. I can't imagine how much has gone into this. And so I also want to thank Mr. Heisler for deciding that we should go ahead and take action on this tonight, because thank you to all of you who are here as well, who've shared your thoughts and showed that, you want to see action happen. I know this is not going to be enough, probably. It's not maybe even going to be what you want to see happen, but I hope that you're willing to work with us, because we want to work with you. And so thank you to all of you who've shared your thoughts tonight or who came to attend. And with that, are there any other questions or comments from council members? Ms. Leering, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, but I would second that motion. I would like to second that motion.
All right, actually, it's already been seconded, but thank you.
Oh, yeah.
So,
all right, thank you.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to the vote.
Leering?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Thank you. With that, that ends our input items, so we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion by Mr. Zimmerman, second by Mr. Heisler. This is not debatable. Please proceed to vote.
Ms. Laring?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. We are adjourned.